you, I found out why that's 2,500 on that bear.
Why is that?
I found the reason why you put 2,500 on the bear.
Because when gold gets to 2,500, I'll
Yes.
take his blindfold. Yes, exactly.
Well, I think you're gonna. I really do. I
Yeah.
think people should understand that this is a tremendously bullish market. Days like this are just opportunities for those that are not yet fully invested. And I think sooner or later, we're going to see the full face of that bear.
There's one more elephant in the room, and if I can have 3 more minutes of your time, I would love to get your take on the banking situation, the banking crisis that's going on right now here. We haven't really touched on that. That's another major, event that's occurring right before our eyes.
You know what I like to say to Powell at the meeting when he has that meeting? You guys, what have you been doing these last few years? First of all, you printed all this money. Okay, we had a pandemic, even though we're realizing it was really more of a scam than anything else. But okay, you're supposed to have understandings of economics. All this money went up. You drove interest rates down to zero. You destroyed the fixed income market. The way people can handle finances now compared to 20 years ago, if you didn't like the market, you went in and bought CDs or Ginnie Mae's, or you drove interest rates down to zero, or people went into more riskier stuff, including the stock market. Then we have this Ukrainian thing and global crisis and supply, and then you tell us, no, the inflation is just transitory, okay? And you're supposed to be watching. Part of your key job is watching these banks to make sure you gave out a big report last November when you went through the banking system, and there's not one sentence in your entire report that there's some concern about regional banks because of what's happening. And then in a matter of 4 or 5 months, they're blowing up. Where were you? What were you doing? How did you not see this? And if you didn't see it, why should I trust you anymore going forward? And that's another reason why I think the dollar is not going to, and people are not going to have the same faith that we have here and all. So listen, it's not that the 3 big banks that we've heard the names of did something that all the other banks didn't do. They might have done it in bigger fashion with more risk. And let me close with this, Ron.
Yeah.
This is the scariest thing I've heard when I've been talking to friends and clients. If we go insure all deposits, no matter what you have in the bank, we insure that. You and I need to go and find a way to open a bank. Because think about this. We could take the most risk ever without deposits. We could buy soybean futures, take all of that money, put it in soy, lend it to the most riskiest person in the world. And if it blows up, our depositors are insured now by the FDIC. Yeah. I think it's pure insanity for that reason. And here's the other side vent that a lot of people aren't speaking about this. See, when money flows into money markets, it doesn't get back into the economy. It just sits in the money market. When you put your money in the bank then lends it out to local businesses, and the average turnover on a deposit is 3 times. Money flowing out of banks now and going into money markets is really bad because that money just sits there. It doesn't move the economy. That's another issue that they have. And we're going to see more, and we're only going to see the long-term impacts over the coming months. And where that's going to be is commercial real estate. There's a bunch of it that's got to turn over now that people are going to have to restructure, and banks are not going to be anywhere as liberal as they were, especially when interest rates were a lot lower. So that's going to slow down the economy. And a lot of these banks are going to have to merge and all the kind of balance of balance sheets. And we're putting a lot of power into a few people's hands. Jamie Dimon is a mini Federal Reserve right now. Jamie Dimon is going to be asked, hey, what do you think before? I mean, he's not going to see this publicly, but he's going to be like BlackRock. And there's just going to be a handful of huge conglomerate financial organizations tied to the hip of the government. And most of our independent little mom and pop type of banks and all that used to really help the small business are going to be gone. And small businesses are not going to get loans from the JP Morgans of the world. So there's a lot of ramifications of this, other than the current news, how it's impacting stock market prices and all, that are only going to start to play out over the coming weeks and months.
First Mining Gold is a development company advancing 2 of the largest gold projects in Canada. Springpole in Ontario, and Duparquet, located in Quebec, each already has 5 million ounces of gold reserves, but exploration initiatives are underway at both projects to find even more gold. First Mining is well-financed, has zero debt, and owns an interest in 4 additional Canadian gold development projects.
Does it feel like to you, see if I can convey this verbally, like the fundamentals of capitalism, based on what you see, just for instance, in the banking industry and all these bailouts and ensuring this, that in some ways, I think America was highly successful, obviously because of a capitalist economic system, but a lot of the fundamentals have been eroded over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And especially, it just seems like the further we go, the more manipulated or uncapitalistic we become.
How I've described it is, instead of redoing the road and closing it and resurfacing all, they just send the guys out with the little stuff, dump it in, roll it, and go. And that's what's happened for the last few financial crises. Yeah. And what that's also done is it's weakened us. It's the same thing like when we were kids. If you didn't come in first place, whatever, you didn't get a trophy. Now everybody gets a participation award. Doesn't matter where you finish. Everything is up. It's the same thing that's happened now, is people aren't paying for their mistakes. They make a mistake, you bail it out, keep going. It was said back in 2008, if we'd allowed things to default and all, we would have been much cleaner. We'd have not had the issues they have. Don't forget, a lot of these trillions of dollars that have been added into our national debt is to pay for financial mistakes that have happened. And we've gone past it now. And so I just think, and by the way, it's also opened the door for like the AOCs of the world who talk socialism. As soon as there's a problem, take it from this person, because in a sense, they got something a little right. We've shrunk how money is spread around America. The top 5% control 95%. 2/3 of Americans now are working paycheck to paycheck. It isn't more spread out as it was when our family was growing up and all. And our parents didn't have the belief in debt. My parents never had a credit card. My father, if he couldn't pay cash for it, he wasn't buying it. And that was just the attitude. The difference now is we ask, can we make the first payment? We see that in the car market. I'm telling you now what's happening. If you know anybody at car dealers, the only way we were sustaining it, we had to do 5, 6, 7-year car loans. Most people are what they call upside down now. Their car's worth less than what they can get for it. If we really have a bad recession and those people can't pay payments, they're going to say, here, take your car back. Mm-hmm. It's not like a house. I mean, they're going to, a house you can lose a lot, but a car, And so we have a lot of side issues that are happening because of all this poor way that we've handled capital and all. And they're all coming home to roost. It's the perfect storm. It's what I said, that this is going to be the worst ever social, political, and economic era for America, because all the terrible things that happened for a lot of years that were covered up. I call it the don't worry, be happy crowd was drinking the Kool-Aid that the Federal Reserve was providing. And now we don't want to pay a price, but we're going to pay, and we're going to unfortunately pay dearly and hard.
Yeah, they papered over things, and then they papered over that and papered over that. But eventually, like you said, the hens come home to roost. I'll end with this. I once heard the statement, there's no better teacher in life than pain. And it feels like over the last 20 years or so, whether you were a big bank or whoever, everybody got bailed out. There was never any real pain. So there were no real lessons that were learned.
You just saw that with SVB. 93% of the depositors were over the limit. And they were all real wealthy people. And they got bailed out. I always say this, if that was the carpenters union or the bus drivers union, I don't think they would have worried about that as much at all. And by the way, before we finish, after my last interview, I found out why that's 2,500 on that bear.
Why is that?
I found the reason why you put 2,500 on the bear.
Because when gold gets to 2,500,
yes.
I'll take his blindfold. Yes, exactly.
Well, I think you're gonna. I really do. I think people should understand that this is a tremendously bullish market. Days like this are just opportunities for those that are not yet fully invested. And I think sooner or later, we're going to see the full face of that bear.
I think we will. We'll see his eyeball soon. Peter, on behalf of all the viewers that are with us right now, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. You've been very generous once again, sharing your knowledge with us. If people want to learn more about you, they can go, is it petergrandich.com?
Yeah, and Twitter is where I found the home in Twitter. I spend a lot of time speaking about it because you can just do everything instantaneously now. You know, in the old days when you wrote a newsletter on, a day to write it, a day for the printer to typeset it, a day to print it and fold it, 2 to 3 days to mail it. Now in 10 seconds, you can say everything you want to say.
That's right. So follow Peter on Twitter. Hey, thank you. And I will see you in about 3 weeks. We're going to meet up with, is it Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. You're going to allow us to talk about what we actually do, which is an alternative to traditional financial planning. So I appreciate that, Ron.
Yeah,
God bless
that'll be
you.
great. Yep. Everybody stay tuned for that. Thanks, Peter. Have a great day.
You too.